Come on. Boom. We are live. Oh, man. We were having some technical difficulties, and it looks like Cassidy got kicked out again. Bummer. Sweet. Gotta love it. Everyone who's joining in, welcome. Not really sure. Of course, it's always fantastic when you use one of these platforms and then they start having a ton of problems right out the gate. Always amazing. Gotta love it. So Cassie's going to try and get... Oh, there we go. We got her.
Sorry about that.
No worries. I was worried it was going to be another problem. So I think we're good. I think we're okay. Beautiful. Cool. All right. Everybody rolling in. Sorry. A little bumpy at the start, but we're good. Everybody rolling in. Obviously, thank you for joining us. I love starting off kind of in the stereotypical way. Let us know where you're from. It's always kind of interesting. Me personally, I am just outside Philadelphia in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Cassie, where in the Europe are you at right now?
I'm currently in London.
London. How's the weather there?
It's actually been very warm. So there's been
really?
a drought. So it's very shocking. So trying to make use of the warm weather while we have it.
Oh, that's not good. Got someone out in LA. Of course. I love LA. I need to get out there soon. We'll wait another minute or so. I don't like rewarding stragglers who are late. So we'll get moving into this. Plus, I know we've got a lot to talk about. There's a ton of stuff going on in the SEO world, and that is what we're going to talk about today. Someone out in San Francisco, too, Eduardo. All the West Coasters, thank you for joining us. I say we go ahead and do this. Let's get moving. Let's get into it. That way we've got some time at the end as much as we can. But everyone who is joining and everyone who will join later, you will obviously see this too. But welcome to Outsmarting Google's AI Overview, which is the new rules of e-commerce SEO. If you have not noticed, which I'm sure many of you have, there have been a pretty big shakeup in the SEO world, not only from Google implementing its own AI overview, but some people moving into platforms like ChatGPT to do a lot of their searching. And so this means that a lot of e-commerce brands need to pivot on what they're doing and to make sure that they're adjusting for what is effectively the new world of search. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. For all of you who may not know, we are part of the BlueTuskr team. My name is Andrew. I'm the founder and CEO over at BlueTuskr. We are a full-service marketing company for e-commerce sellers, and we live and breathe SEO, and that is all run by the amazing Cassidy Burns here, who is our SEO manager over at BlueTuskr. Cassidy, thank you for doing this with me, and you know the drill. I will try to act like I know what I'm talking about, but I know you're going to be the one, the expert here. But at the end, we will give stuff away as usual. So we're going to be giving everyone a completely free technical SEO review. So we're going to do a audit, basically a quick run through of your website completely free and set up a 30-minute consultation with one of our SEO specialists. We also have an e-commerce SEO checklist that I will be providing towards the end. This was something that we created and have been kind of reiterating on, especially since Google released their ever since Google leaked their algorithm and how they kind of look at everything. So we've got all that. So we're going to send that your way. And then we're going to give away one of our SEO audits. So these audits are very large. They are complete deep dives into not only what are you currently doing and how your current SEO results are showing, but also what we suggest for you to do going forward. And of course, stick around to the end. I will give you all insight into exactly how you can submit for that drawing, as well as getting the free technical SEO review and the checklist. A little bit of housekeeping. Some of you have already seen it. Thank you for letting us know where you're at. A lot of people out in California. Looks like Anthony out in NYC. Good to see you, buddy. Housekeeping off to the side there. You'll see the chat bot thing. Chat, it's not a bot, but chat section. If you got any questions, comments, concerns, throw them in there. Even if you just want to give us some compliments, we love them. We try to make these as casual as possible and make it a little bit more conversational. So feel free to jump in with any questions. Try to do them throughout so that hopefully we don't have to wait until the end to answer any questions, but we'll also try to leave some time at the end to do that as well. but we're going to stick it to an exact hour so that we don't take up too much of your time. But what we are going to talk about today, obviously the AI overview and how it's impacting search behavior. We're going to talk about all the different tactics in terms of creating new content, as well as how to optimize existing content to adjust for this new overview. Different ways to get your brand cited into AI summaries. So that doesn't mean just on the Google side. That also means how can you show up in ChatGPT a little bit more. Same thing with like how you may or may not need to adjust some of your product schema or any other schema for that matter, backlinking, and if it's still good, if it's not good, where you should be getting it from, how SEO and CRO are really working together now, and how Google is starting to look at that element, as well as the strategies to monitor your AI overview so you actually are starting to look at slightly different rankings than you may have in the past. But the very first thing I want to start off with, just because this is always kind of interesting, we're going to launch a poll real quick, just so we can kind of get some insight. I'd love to know how much of your organic traffic has dropped since the AI overview rolled out. Now, I want to say, I know it was kind of slowly rolled out, but I want to say it was like probably September when it really kind of was like, okay, it's pretty much in everything now, right?
Yeah, about September, October is when we saw it on about at least 60% of all SERPs.
Yeah. So interested to see about since September, October-ish, how many of you started to see organic traffic drops, whether it's maintained or whether it's improved or whether it's just starting to come down. We've seen a mix of things across the board. Obviously, it really kind of depends on the content that you created. But if you're looking at your screen right now, you will see a poll on there. We'll give you guys another couple minutes here to fill that out. But it does look like a good amount of you are seeing it's pretty much flatlined, or it's about the same, it's flatlined, or it's come down a little bit. But we'll keep I'll keep that up for a minute here. Looking like more and more of you are having it come down. But so AI overview, how you can thrive in organic search with AI overview. Obviously, it is a very different world now, and so a lot of what we're going to be talking about is this AI overview. So if you haven't noticed, since it's gone live in September, October-ish, and I'm going to go ahead and end this poll, looks like about a majority of you have flatlined, and a good chunk of you have actually lost traffic a little bit. No one's lost a ton of traffic, which is great, but no one hasn't seen drops at all either, which means they're not seeing any increases. So kind of flatlining, which more or less is around what we're seeing, along with some of the drops. And a lot of that stemming from the AI overview. So just kind of a little bit of recap on what it is. If you search almost anything on Google, especially if it's more informational, up at the top, they're going to have this AI overview, which you can see a screenshot of there. And so what that's doing is it's causing the visibility to shrink down, but its clicks are primarily down, while conversions are becoming a little bit more harder to earn, but not as much, at least from what we're seeing. So basically what is happening is you're seeing a lot of Google is providing the answer to people. So it's not of whatever it is they're searching. So it's not really requiring them to actually click on anything. If they ask Google a question, Google answers it, and they don't even need to click into your website. But when someone sees the answer that Google is providing, it typically shows that link. And so if you look in your Google Search Console, you're actually going to see that your impressions may or may not be pretty much increasing by a lot if you're being shown in the AI overview. However, if whatever it is showing in the AI overview isn't necessarily required for them to click, you'll also see your CTR, and obviously your clicks are way down as well. Now, this is, I totally lost my train of thought here. So obviously search behavior is changing, right? So it depends on what people are searching. So you're getting people that are searching really broad stuff. So it's like they're looking to answer a question. So like, how long should I cook this chicken for kind of thing? They ask it, Google gives them the answer. They don't need to click. And so you can see now the SERPs are very different. You're no longer having, who's on page one, who's in ranking number one on page one. You're getting Google providing the AI overview that is basically just giving you all the insight here already. And so it's making these kind of more traditional keyword searches and people looking for informational things becoming very different. And so a lot of that is actually moving into forums, which is very interesting. So if you look at what you're seeing when you search something, you'll get the Google AI overview that will provide you a bunch of information. And then pretty much the very next handful of things is going to be like a Reddit or a Quora. So the Google itself, away from the AI overview, is leaning in more on kind of like public conversation, more so than it is like someone that fabricated a blog post to answer a question. And so when we're seeing this, this is actually also how AI overviews and like things like ChatGPT are providing answers. So if you ever ask ChatGPT something about like, hey, what does everyone think about this? It will actually give you a lot of information based off things that it has scraped off of not just review platforms, but also platforms like Reddit, Quora, et cetera. And then it'll quote them as well. So a lot of people are leaning more into these forums, which is becoming kind of interesting because now it's kind of like, here's how social media is actually affecting your SEO as well. So the interesting side of this is how you can start to leverage some of these platforms. So Reddit is very conversational. If you've ever used Reddit before, it is a scary, scary playground because it is a lot of highly opinionated people that will chew you apart if it feels like you're trying to advertise. So it has to come off extremely natural. But this is just having conversations with people and casually mentioning either your brand or being able to provide a link to something, but making it seem like you're just trying to help. If you're there to, I guess, assist the community, you're in a good spot. But if you are trying to sell stuff, they're going to chew you apart. Quora is a little bit different. Quora, sometimes you can get away with being a little bit more promotional, but at the same time, when someone asks a question on Quora and you just provide a very simple answer, that is not enough. You have to supply a novel of an answer most of the time. So it's almost like publishing blog posts on there. So creating all of this original kind of content on these other platforms actually helps the brand start to get in a better position because you're getting listed higher from these actual posts. But even on your own brand, that's kind of how you start looking at like, okay, how do I actually get back my own organic traffic? So this is where we start talking about changing content, right? So AI overviews, they completely strip out the basic answers. So like I said, if someone's like searches, how do I cook this chicken? Could you write a blog post on it? Of course you can. Go for it. No one's going to read it. What's going to end up happening is even if it eventually starts to kind of rank well, Google's going to start putting it in its AI overview. It's going to get you a ton of impressions because it's going to give the answer in the AI overview, but it's going to give the answer right away at like, hey, you wanted it 165 and then you take it out, in which case no need to click. So they don't go to your blog post. And if they don't go to your blog post and you've got everything set up there, obviously you've got your pop-ups, you've got them pixeled, you ideally want to retarget them. So you're completely SOL because you couldn't get them to the site. And so this is where it becomes kind of interesting to start looking at pivoting content. So when we talk about click-worthy content, we're talking about something that is providing them not only an answer, because there's a good chance that you may still end up in the overview, but also giving them some insight into like what they need to learn more about. So we find like gift guides and top X of this, top Y of that, like providing more and more information into like, there's a whole list of things on this blog you're going to want to look at. And so that's why it becomes a lot more interesting as opposed to the articles that a lot of brands create, which is like a 1,500, 2,000 word blog post on answering a very simple question. It's just going to be that those days are over. And now you have to have a whole piece written up about some type of topic. Then on top of that, it's also providing some of those more interactive things. So whether that's like calculators or quizzes or pop-ups, or maybe, especially if you're on Shopify, you have the ability to add to cart directly from the blog. So you can do things like that. Anything you can do to get them to engage. Google released, I think they leaked it on purpose, but their algorithm kind of data back in May of 2024. And one of the things that came very true from that, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is CRO is a big thing. And so Google's looking at not only how much traffic are you getting to these blogs so that it knows, or to any content, so that it knows people are showing interest, but it's also actually looking at how are people engaging with it. And so getting people to click on things within your blogs or within your other content is very important. So that's why you should be seeing people that are utilizing things like a table of contents can be in there. So when they click on it, immediately it's no longer a bounce. And so obviously that helps. They're not really skimming things. You've got quizzes on there, pop-ups on there. Maybe you've got an incentive for them to, subscribe to a newsletter, or maybe you're just promoting a product or collection or something like that, something to get them to engage. So you can start to create this more click-worthy content and then also look at the CRO side. Catering to the search intent is what's very important, right? So the informational stuff is what's getting really sucked into the Google's AI overview. That is how to clean, like in this example we've got here, how to clean suede shoes. easy answer on Google. They can give you all of the main topics on it, and there's no need for you to click. So you can kind of see off to the side there. You've got like the detailed cleaning steps, like Google's giving them all the information before they even click. So you're really just helping Google. You're not doing anything for your own brand unless you're creating something a little bit more like the other options, which is your navigational stuff. So if obviously it's looking for something, whether it could be contact information or like we've got here, return policies, commercial stuff, that could be more of your articles of like, top gifts for dad for Father's Day, or, top 10 guitars for sale or something like that. Then you have the transactional stuff, which is like they're actively looking to purchase something. So like in this scenario, buy suede cleaner online. And so really what you have to do is you have to get away from informational. You have to completely get away from informational stuff. It's all getting sucked into Google's AI overview. And at this point, it's really becoming more of, can you provide the answer? Yes. But at the same time, you actually need to find a way to get them to click to the article. So either A, you've got to lean into other types of content, or B, if you are going to make informational stuff, it's got to have more value than just answering a basic question. So creating the content, you've got to narrow your focus. You've got to look at a very specific niche. You've got niche, depending on how you like to say it. And you've got more expert-driven topics, right? So this is still reminiscent of what it's been, which is kind of that thought leadership. You don't want to create any thin content. It's going to be a total waste of time. Usually we think like 2,000 plus words is ideal. Now you're targeting very specific intent. So you're not just doing broad keywords. Long tail is the way to go. People that are actively looking to convert. So everyone on this event today, most of us are brands. We're all looking to bring in more organic revenue, right? Like organic traffic's fantastic, but you can't pay your bills with it. Can you retarget people? Can you get new subscribers from people visiting the blog? Yes, but at the end of the day, we all want more organic revenue, so we're not so reliant on our other marketing initiatives. And so leaning in on the different intents of people that are more transactional, people that maybe are more navigational a little bit, people that are definitely more commercial. So this way, that they have somewhat of an intent to shop. And so that's what we want to lean in on. They may not shop right away, but we know that they had some interest. So start thinking about SEO just like you would with paid advertising, right? With paid advertising, you have a top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. Well, in SEO, informational is 100% top of funnel. Navigational can be middle of funnel-ish. Commercial is definitely middle of funnel. And then your transactional is more bottom of funnel. And basically what Google is saying, like top of funnel, we've got covered. And so you've got to start focusing more on middle of funnel. People are already somewhat educated and you're trying to push them over the edge. And so it also helps by asking certain questions or kind of preemptively answering them and seeing like, basically, what can't AI summarize? And typically that is significantly larger pieces of content that are providing much more value that aren't just answering basic questions. So some of the stuff that AI can't replicate, like we've got here, using proprietary data or insights from your own tools and research. So for example, one of the things we've done a few times is doing just like surveys and getting information and then creating content on that. So think of it almost more like you're creating like a creative piece, or you're creating almost like a journalist would do, where they're supplying some type of additional value outside of just answering a question. Strong internal links, descriptive anchor text, very self-explanatory. That's kind of been the same spot for years now. Incorporating your own point of view, your brand's own style, and expert tone. This one's very, very important, only because Google is going to take your information and answer it for the people that are just looking for answers, right? But if you can have like a little bit of fun behind it, or you can have a very specific tone that really resonates with your target audience, just like journalists do, or just like specific media outlets do, then all of a sudden they don't care what Google's AI overview. They want to hear how you said it and how you word it and what your thoughts are behind it. So starting to lean in a little bit on an opinion also couldn't hurt, just to see how would your audience react. Of course, it's dependent on your product line and your brand. And then skip the cheap like AI writing shortcuts. Like, look, we use AI internally to help write stuff. Everyone should do it. It speeds things up. It slows down writer's block. But the fact is, relying solely on it is ridiculous. You have to have people that are at least somewhat close to experts in the space, or that can research it at least, and then also can give it its own twist, can give it its own brand voice, can provide that additional information. AI's stuff that it creates, no matter how much context you give it, it always comes off like you can pretty much tell. There's some tricks too to the AI side of like, if you see someone, I see this stuff on LinkedIn all the time where you can see ChatGPT really likes to lean in on that like longer dash between words, or between like in sentences. So as soon as you see that, it's like, okay, ChatGPT wrote this. So there's stuff like that where you can actually tell AI wrote it. So you've got to have editors, and you still have to have your traditional writers that have insight into what they're writing about. And that is where I'm going to breathe for a minute. And Cassie, I'll let you take over for optimize what you can control.
No problem. So it's really important right now to leverage your schema markup. This indicates to Google what this web page is about. And if it's not optimized, then how is Google going to know what it is? How is it going to show up in search results? So it's really important to still making sure that your schema is optimized, whether that's organization, review, FAQ, product, making sure that it's fully optimized. And then another way to do this is through push images, star ratings, and availability into the SERPs and through your schema. And it's really easy to validate your schema if you create the script, and then you can test your code per different types of schema. And then that way you can validate it through search engines and making sure that it's populating for the right users and people that are searching for your brand or product. And then obviously linking smart. So we really want to make sure that we're using descriptive anchor text, and then mostly because it helps Google understand what the content is going to, the hierarchy of the content, and then also helps users get to where they're looking for. So if you're linking to a bunch of related articles from your pillar piece, that way people can find additional sources regarding that subtopic from your main topic of your pillar piece, or it can help your users find the product that they're searching for within that blog article. So that also just adds more link juice to the product pages, to the collection pages, and then builds that authority for each page. And then also really important.
Sorry.
No worries. And then when you're running audits on your website, you want to make sure that there's no broken internal or external links. It's just bad user experience. So just keep that in mind when you're auditing. And if you find one, then remove it or update it to a new link. All right, so something that's new and upcoming is leveraging multimedia and voice search. So AI and users are favoring rich, engaging content formats that go beyond just the simple content, paragraphs, blog style, thin content, informational that we were talking about before. So it's really important to embed videos, tutorials, even just how-to videos explaining a product. If you want to go into a little bit more depth, if it's something that might be a little bit difficult for some people. And you can also use audio clips or podcasts just to increase that brand authority. And then keep it conversational. We love adding in FAQs to our blog articles because people are searching them on Google. If we're typing in a long-term keyword, long tail keyword on Google, you'll see that Google will come up. People are always asking. It's really important to put those questions into your blog articles and then answer them for your users. And then structure content with headings, and again, making sure that your schema is on that page so it's being found within Google. And then adding transcripts and captions to make multimedia crawlable and accessible. This way, people who are they have disability issues when it comes to finding words or reading or anything like that, Google is really prioritizing websites that have accessibility features.
Real quick, before I move into the next slide, I want to apologize to everyone that I clearly hit a soft spot on the dash for what's used with ChatGPT. Isabella, I do the same thing. Sometimes I'll remove it if I like what ChatGPT wrote and I want to leave it. But Jessica and Brian still using it. Hey, do it, man. It works. It's just the content, not the actual dash. Or use it more. Who knows? Sorry.
No worries. So it's also really important right now to combine your SEO and CRO because they really go hand in hand. Every click, every engagement metric is very important right now. Like we mentioned earlier, Google is prioritizing where people are engaging on your site. If you're finding that people aren't clicking on a certain register now button or they're not clicking to the product page, where is that problem coming from? How can we fix it? How can we optimize it? So adding those exit intent pop-ups, making quizzes, having banners, making sure that our landing pages are converting and that we're creating that sense of urgency for our users. And then a way to do that is just through heat maps and testing tools. And then again, if something isn't working, change it up, change the if it's a color of a CTA, if it's a link, change it and see what works best for your team. And then through A/B testing.
Building authority beyond your website.
So backlinking obviously is still very, very important, and we want to make sure that we're doing it correctly. So you want to make sure that your backlinks are coming from a website that has at least around the same or slightly higher domain authority, which most of us already know now. But we want to make sure that we're prioritizing links from very specific industry that aligns with ours. So we can also do that through traditional backlinking, but through review websites and forums. And then some of those review websites, it would be great if you could get a backlink to best shoes for hiking or something along those lines, get listed in one of those listicles. Those are getting a lot of traction right now because they're considered an expertise in that field. So if you can get a backlink to a listicle that goes over certain products, yes, it might have competitors on it, but having that authority from that link is still very important. And ways that you can do that is using tools like Ahrefs, SEMrush to find those backlink opportunities. But again, traditional search on Google, if you are trying to get on top of a listicle, you can Google it and then reach out to that company. I think that's a very effective method as well. And then you also want to make sure that you're avoiding spammy links. We don't want to have a link that only has traffic coming from a certain area that isn't even where your country is. So you want to make sure that it's not spammy and it has a strong domain authority and it's an updated, clean content website. So like I said, you want to get featured in these roundups and listings. They're really important and users still find these very trustful. It's not something that AI overview can just easily replicate. So if you can get on top of a gift guide, buyer's guide, best type list, it's really important for SEO. And you can do this by, like I said, traditional Google search. You can reach out to bloggers, influencers, affiliate websites, and then you can also use platforms like Haro, Featured, or Help a B2B Writer. And then those websites might get picked up in AI Overview as a link, but it's not something that AI Overview can just easily list out all those best brands, anything like that. And so these also build they increase your brand awareness and build that link juice to your website. So it's not only good for that, but it's just good for overall SEO performance.
Yeah. And to kind of piggyback off this one too, this is where it kind of the lines get a little bit blurred between SEO initiatives and PR. And so a lot of this stuff, like when we look at it as an SEO team, we look at it like, okay, most of this stuff is stuff that we can handle. We can reach out to people. We can get backlinks. We can do this part. There is a big benefit to the PR side of things. That's a different beast, only because if you're working with a PR firm, it's because they have pre-existing relationships with journalists at, more like media outlets that you could actually get links to, which also can be very beneficial from an SEO perspective for obvious reasons. It's just that typically the content they're creating can really peak and then it'll really fall off. So it's kind of like working with an influencer, right? If you're doing social media, something goes viral, fantastic, everyone's thrilled, but then after a while it dies off. It's the same thing with that, but it can help kind of the snowball effect. So using platforms like Cassie's got here with Haro, Featured, and Help a B2B Writer Out, which I don't know the name, SS, it's on the, where we at, third line there. So use platforms like Haro, Featured, Help B2B Writer Out. There's a few others out there too. Like Quoted, it's QWOTED, I believe. Like those are ones where journalists that don't really have PR companies to work with will reach out and say like, hey, I'm writing an article on this. Does someone want to chime in? Those can be very beneficial as well. Sorry.
No worries. So you want to own your niche and brand mentions. You want to make sure that you're publishing content that's cited by others, especially in forums, news sites, and blog articles, and then build backlinks from those topical authority websites, not just the general high domain authority ones. So if you can obtain a backlink or write a guest blog article and make sure that you're linking back to your website from a site that is more than just a business profile listing, but it's actually a strong domain authority in your industry, is really important. And then you also want to make sure that it gets mentioned in those buyer's guides and industry specific roundups that AI might cite. So like we said earlier, if you want to get mentioned in best SEO agency, I would look up maybe reviews like on Clutch. They have really good domain authority and can get you a decent amount of leads and potential increased brand awareness. And EEAT, I'm sure you hear about it all the time. It's not going anywhere. It's definitely most important, I think, aspect that Google is looking for, especially given this AI overview. So EEAT, we typically only think about it in a content type of way, but it's also really important for your off page. So you want to make sure that you're earning third-party mentions, not just from yourself, but from additional websites. And then you want to encourage people to write reviews, testimonials, and publish case studies about your product. See what people like about it. And then that way you can start building that expertise, that trustworthiness between users coming to your site. And then another way to do this is, like we said, respond to Reddit and Quora threads. Google is prioritizing those listings because they're not technically an expert. These are coming from real people. It's not something that AI is writing. So if you're able to get in there and answer some people's questions about if you maybe sell mountain gear and you're able to go in and talk about specific mountain trails and, you know, a product from your website that might be useful for it without directly promoting it, then that would be really helpful for users and could have a higher chance of coming up on the SERPs.
Real quick, we got a really good question from Kevin, actually. Interested in how product content, so like the e-commerce catalogs, like product data, can help improve PDP, PLP, and on-site search and product discovery. Thoughts, or does this conversation only apply to non-product content? No, 100% not. Not product. It's not. We call them core pages. I don't know why I couldn't get that out. So we look at it a little bit separately. So we look at your blogs as like consistently creating content. And then we consider like collection pages and PDPs, homepage, about page, that type of stuff as your core page. Because we look at them as like it's the core element of your website. However, those are things where you don't need to be constantly changing them. Every single thing that we've talked about today is completely irrelevant for those pages too. It's just a slightly different approach. So a little bit earlier, we talked about how SEO and CRO are really, kind of intertwined. Think of it, for those of you that sell on Amazon, it's very similar to how Amazon works, right? Amazon really just wants to provide the user a good experience. So if they're coming to, I know as sellers, a lot of you probably are like, well, they're not giving me a good experience. That's a different problem. They want to provide the customer a good experience. And so when they come to the listing, that's why if it's converting, if it's bringing traffic, if it's engaging, if they're giving you positive reviews, that means that customer had a good experience. So you go higher and higher up in the rankings. And that's why when you start to add more and more imagery and more video and really clear, concise copy that's easy for that person to, understand, but you're still using the certain keywords, your ranking continues to improve because the overall experience that person having is better. And that's what Amazon wants. Google is 100% the same, no different. The reason a lot of their rankings have leaned more and more into CRO is because Google is going to put you up first if they know that when I send someone to this website, the person's going to have a good experience and they're going to find what they're looking for or buy what they're looking for. And so that's why site speed, mobile friendliness, all that stuff that Google's been preaching for years and years hasn't changed. And so why that's relevant to product pages is very similar to, yes, you still need to do the normal keyword stuff and the normal writing. a lot of people look at, when they think SEO, they think keywords, they think copywriting, and they think backlinking. And 9 times out of 10, that is like a quarter of what's actually relevant for SEO. You also have to factor in all usability. You have to factor in, especially for brands, conversion rate. So when it comes to PDPs specifically, that's where you have to walk that fine line, because you don't want to overload a PDP with a ton of copy. It becomes extremely daunting. No one reads it. No one likes to read copy. They prefer visuals. And so it starts to hurt the conversion rate on your PDP, in which case that can actually hurt your SEO, even though you're loading it up with more copy and more links and things like that. It can actually hurt you. So that's why typically our CRO team and our SEO team are basically all under the same area now, because when we're looking at, okay, we've got to develop more PDP content, or we need to develop some content for collection pages, how can we put in very easily used like tabbing systems, or how can we hide copy that's still indexable and allow the user to get to it if they want to get to it, but not exactly like make it loaded up. So there's a little bit more of a finesse to it. But Kevin, to answer your question in an extremely long-winded way, this is relevant to the entire site, not just new content. Sorry.
No worries. So next we have double down on brand search. So you want to run brand focused paid media like on Meta, YouTube, TikTok to drive more branded search queries to your website. And then you can do that by optimizing your brand and product type. So I think comparisons is a great way to do this. We've seen a lot of success doing that. So Acme Vitamin C Serum versus The Ordinary. So putting out brand comparisons, or just you can make it a little bit more generic if you don't feel like mentioning another brand. But that way it keeps users engaged and they're close to that next buying step. They're thinking about what product they want and they're trying to decide which one to go for. And then you can angle your content to obviously favor your product and then link to your product from that page. And then also encourage UGC and branded keywords. This is really huge right now, just in general. Having user-generated content just further shows that trustworthiness of a website. And then speeding up the process. So other than organic search, you can improve your traffic driving initiatives through blog articles and long form content coming from Google ads, social media ads, email marketing, linking it from those other different platforms. And that way it's not just Google search, since as we know, sometimes AI might not come up on the search. So making sure that you're using all different avenues to bring in traffic to your website.
Think of that kind of like a snowball effect, right? So you could write a flawless piece of content that it not only answers a question, but it provides a bunch of extra value, and it's got all of the additional bells and whistles on it to get people to interact with it and blah, blah. It would be perfect. And if you just publish it on your website and sit and wait, it will probably do nothing. You have to be driving traffic to these pieces of content that you're creating, whether they're core pages or blog pages, so that Google starts to get that trigger and it starts to read it more and more, right? Because Google's algorithm, let's say you're going after, what did we do here? We got, I don't know what to cook, frying pans. Sure. So let's say you're going after like the term frying pans. Google already knows exactly like, okay, these people have been ranking for this forever, blah, blah, blah. That is what it is. And you create a new piece of content that theoretically on paper should let you outrank them because of how good it is. However, Google has no idea you exist because all of these are getting all of the traffic because they're already number one. So you have to fight your way to the top, and then it becomes easier to maintain because that traffic just keeps coming in. And that's what allows Google to keep you up high in the rankings. So the way to speed this up is to drive traffic to the content that you're creating. So sometimes the obvious is emails. You know, some people do like monthly roundups or whatever, and they'll send out, you know, emails with a bunch of articles that they've written. Social media ads can work very well. It's a great way to do top of funnel traffic where you can put a small budget into some social ads and just focus on traffic and drive people to, let's say, a blog article. And then obviously the blog articles have different bells and whistles on there to get them to convert, but they showed interest. And so you use that as a top of funnel strategy, and then you can retarget them with incentives to actually purchase. It's the same concept with Google ads. Except with the difference with Google Ads, you can get very, very specific. So let's say you created, an article that's like the top 10 frying pans. Well, you could do a maximize clicks campaign to just the term frying pans, drive a ton of traffic to that article, get it to rank up higher and higher. And now all of a sudden you're on the first page for some type of listicle for frying pans. Then you can kill that Google Ads campaign because it's already up there, and it should maintain as long as things stay in a good spot and you don't start getting outranked by someone else who's doing the same strategy. So getting that traffic to these pieces of content is what really helps start to snowball it. A lot of brands make the mistake of creating content, publishing it, and then going, why isn't this working? And it's because no one knows it's there because it's hidden in a part of your site that is typically not front and center. Sorry. So navigating new metrics. So this is kind of where we start looking at all right, everyone always thinks keywords. They think backlinks. They think how many words this article have. Fantastic. But there's so many other things that are involved in it. And that's where the AI starts to come into play, right? It's not just the fact that Google's giving you an answer. Copy and keywords is now completely Google's area where they can handle it completely through the AI. So you've got to start looking at what's your bounce rate? How many people are searching for your own brand? How much time are people spending on the page? How deep down the page are they actually getting? So using a heat map and scroll tracking systems. How many assisted conversions are they getting? Social shares and mentions, all of the different elements that are factored into your website is what's really important for SEO. It's not just keywords and copy. So you've got to look at everything holistically. So for a lot of you, I'd be interested to see, especially for the people that said they started to see decreases in their organic traffic, I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are on what your conversion rate is. If you feel like your conversion rate's really high, I would bet you probably didn't see that big of a drop. But if for some of you that saw your conversion rates also really low, that could be part of it. Now, you have to factor in some things there because, like I said, if you're doing a lot of top of funnel traffic, that could be bringing you more engagement. So there's pros and cons. But a lot of people, I'm sure, if you started to see that you were pulling back on ad traffic to the website, it started to affect your overall organic search traffic. And that could be because of A, some of these metrics that weren't getting monitored before that could be hurting you, or B, that reduction in traffic. Google thinks that there's less and less people visiting this site, and so it needs to show you less and less often. So you can test and track SERP behavior pretty much on a weekly basis. You can monitor the AI overview activity now, so they totally allow you to do that. You can obviously see in a lot of scenarios where impressions will be going up and then clicks maybe not so much. SEMrush has something that does it. Ahrefs has something that does it. Keeping an eye on your CTR is also very important. That's you're probably going to see that that's come down since the AI overview came out, simply because of the large increase in traffic in impressions, and then obviously the reduction in clicks. And then keep an eye on what your competitors are doing. You never know. Maybe they're doing something and they're showing up a lot more and more. And so maybe they've got something in motion that works really well for them. Do some digging into what their process is and figure it out from there. Isabella said, what month should we be using as the beginning of this change? So we talked about this a little bit in the beginning. It was September, October-ish, right? That we kind of saw okay, this thing is everywhere. It was a slow roll. It wasn't all of a sudden next day it was everywhere. But by September, October of 2024 is when we really started to see in almost every search that the AI overview was there in one way or another.
Yeah, and then the latest Google algorithm updates also favor the AI overview, and so they really are expecting websites and these e-commerce stores to start catering to that and making sure that we have all of our checks and balances in place, especially when it comes to EEAT, and we can do that by monitoring these engagement metrics. So,
yeah. And with a lot of this stuff, all these different tools, we use all of them just because they all kind of give different information. We are SEMrush partners. We tend to cater to them, but we also have Ahrefs. We also have Screaming Frog. I think we've got 2 or 3 others. Am I right? Well, some of them are for different things, but still they all have different ways of doing it. And it's very interesting because when you pull a report from them, they all kind of give you different information. So we're screw it, let's cover our bases and do them all. But you can pull regular reports on these and constantly see, do you have broken links? Do you have those errors? Do you have anything that's going to be affecting everything from a technical perspective? Because no matter how great your copy is or how great you may have stuff in kind of structured, if your overall technical SEO is not in a good spot, you're wasting your time completely, which is also why we're giving them away today. Mm-hmm. Future of AI and SEO. So what's next? What's going to happen? This is definitely one of those things. If you're here today, I already commend you for doing that. I know I'm biased because we're the ones that put it together, but at the same time, there's going to be a lot of brands that don't start to pivot 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now. And then the ones that start doing it now are going to be the ones that are in a better position. One of the reasons we wanted to do this event during the month of May is because it puts you, by the time you actually get things into motion, et cetera, it puts you about 6 months-ish out from Q4. And if you start doing things now for SEO, it's typically an investment to several months in advance. And so if you start doing things immediately, it actually puts you in a much better position for things like Q4. So to give you an example, I'll show you a couple examples towards as we wrap stuff up here. But there's several brands we work with that like really cater heavily into the winter season. And we are going real hard into SEO right now because we know what that did for us last year, where they were that much more beneficial in Q4. So just by doing that, looking at it and adapting early, building that trust immediately is fantastic so that AI just simply can't ignore it. Plus, as more and more people, especially in the Gen Z side, start to use ChatGPT, leaning in on some of those forums and things can also be a lot more beneficial because they'll start referencing you more. If you go into your Google Analytics, I will bet that you see, at least a handful of you, will see that you're getting some traffic from ChatGPT from people that are searching for different things. So all the brands that we think are going to win, the ones that are building authority across all platforms, not just on their own website, creating content that's not just like because I wanted to answer a basic question. You're showing up in AI, you're leaning in on forums, different listings and conversations. Of course, you're measuring your own brand exposure. And then even on top of this is the technical element as well. So we discussed a lot. Obviously, we went through a lot from an AI overview perspective and how that thing functions and what it's looking at and how you can kind of combat it, as well as the standard SEO practices that still need to go in place today. A lot from the CRO side of things, a ton of information on the technical side. So obviously the question being like, if you're having an issue, how can we help? Cassie and her team are hands down the best e-commerce SEO people I've ever seen. So everyone's doing fantastic. We can always help out. At a minimum, we can run an audit for you. Like we talked about today, we'll be doing the technical audit. This was one of the brands we had talked about where we took a lot of this information. This was even started before the AI overview started leaning out, where we saw some amazing results from them, from just implementing a lot of these best practices. This is one of the brands, Devium, that we talked about that we were leaning really heavy into Q4 now because we did it last year and it was an immediate turnaround for them. So it's just seeing those improvements and getting ahead of it, even when the AI overview is still a thing. And so obviously that wraps stuff up. We're going to give some stuff away. If you have questions, comments, concerns, or you just want to compliment us, now is the time. But if you would like a free technical SEO review, so we will basically pull a complete site health audit for you and evaluate from a technical perspective what's going on with your site, what issues you're having, etc. We will do that for you completely for free and set up a call with you to kind of review everything and do a 30-minute consultation with one of our SEO experts. We will also be sending out the SEO Ultimate E-commerce SEO checklist, and we're going to be giving away the SEO free audit. And how do we do it? So all you have to do is just shoot me an email because that makes life a lot easier. I just put my email in the chat. It is andrew@bluetuskr.com. That is BLUETUSKR. Just let me know if you would like the free technical SEO audit and or if you would like the complete SEO audit to be added into the raffle. And then I'm going to get that email out probably later today, where I will also have the ultimate e-commerce SEO checklist. I will send that to everyone so that you all have it. Javier, what do you want? You want my hoodie? I will give you my hoodie, Javier. Anyone, if you've got questions, comments, concerns, now is your chance. Otherwise, thank you all so much for joining us. We gave you 10 minutes back, which is fantastic. I was worried we were going to get through it all. But like I said, shoot me an email, andrew@bluetuskr.com. And if you have any questions, also, you can just shoot me an email there, and I'm happy to help you out so that you're not publicizing any questions. But thank you all for joining us, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thanks guys.